on down to AfterBuzz, gonna talk your favorite show.
Friendly hosts everywhere, humble talks without flirtation.
Going on down to AfterBuzz, gonna see my favorite host.
Ample thoughts day or night, people shouting but never fighting.
Heading on up to AfterBuzz, gonna hope we don't ramble.
We like those with big fat titties, man, I hope this show ain't shitty.
Come on down to AfterBuzz and meet some hosts of mine.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're so bad, we're good. We have Mr. Sayre, Mr. Liberal, and Mr. Am. That's right, Phil I Am, the naysayer, Stephen Lemieux, and
Yes.
White Liberal, Christian Blatt.
That's right. It's about time people start listening to the whites. I think that's what the lesson really is.
We wanted to be quite literal, so we have white liberal.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the South Park After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. First and foremost, obviously, it's going to be very spoiler-filled, and as we always do, overall opinion of the episode and giving it a grade. Who do I start with, the liberal or the right side?
The naysayer is thinking it's like a C+.
C+. Well,
After last week's was great.
yeah, I was talking to Phil earlier today. I couldn't believe that was the show that I missed. I wasn't able to talk about. It was a Terrence and Phillip episode, for God's sake. And where were they tonight? They needed to be in here. I think you're right. It's one of those ones where they probably got Trey and Mac out to the last few minutes and were like, I don't really know how to end this. We'll figure it out next week. And then they're like, meh, forget it. Let's just go on vacation.
Honestly, it felt like after last week they had something cool set up, but then they were like, oh, but we have to find some way to do it in Stranger Things, so let's pigeonhole ourselves in doing it in Stranger Things, even though it doesn't really make that much sense. Even though the funniest part of the episode was the 80s music when the kids were walking. Because, like, you hear it in Stranger Things, it's like, no, that's not 80s music, it's just synthesizers.
No, but I mean, especially in season 2 of Stranger Things, whenever you hear music, it's like the best songs from the 80s. So that's why I think it was so funny that in this, it was so funny, just like Heidi. It was so funny that they used some of the worst songs from the 80s. And Phil and I, Pac-Man Fever, the Super Bowl Shuffle, Gloria, and the Queen of Hearts by Juice Newton was right up there, and of course, Hold On to Nights by Richard Marx. So they found probably the five of the worst songs from the 80s, and I think that's what would really have happened. If you were out with your friends trying to solve a crime or something and you had the radio on, you'd have terrible music on.
So if I go to Pandora right now...
Yeah.
No, Spotify.
Yeah, it's for Spotify.
Well, they're the same, right?
Yeah.
I'll give it a C+ as well. I was just so excited coming into Wednesday of like, we're going to wrap up this season. This is going to be fantastic.
They nuked Canada.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The takeaway from me, what Heidi says, and the joke, the punchline about it's all up to the whites now.
Yes.
I get it. I appreciate it. I love the sentiment, how he got there. Didn't really love it.
Well, what was kind of weird to me is that like they stereotype Trump so well as Garrison, where it just takes it to the extreme, and even in this sense, not even that much of the extreme. But then they show Justin Trudeau, and you think, okay, we were dealing with the Prime Minister last episode, which is hilarious because he's like, let me finish. Okay, I'm finished. And then they introduced a Justin Trudeau character, which he's such a pussy. Like, there's so much that you can rag on the guy about. And they just don't make fun of him at all. And I'm like, why? That doesn't make sense. Like, why would you go out of your way to introduce a character from the real world and then just not make fun of him at all? So, like, the whole Canada story just kind of fell flat, aside from, hey, let's bring Ike in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expected a lot more Canada. And, you know, as we're talking about it, I haven't given a letter grade yet. I'm going to solid D because I'm just very disappointed. You know, this episode would still graduate and, you know, get into like a junior college, but
Gender studies major.
Yeah, definitely gender studies major.
Here's what I don't like. I'm all for continuing storylines and so forth, but we got to wrap it up. The fact that Kyle, me and Steph talked about this last episode. Kyle completely misinterpreted the Man in the Mirror song, which, I mean, the message couldn't have been any clearer.
Except to Kyle.
And yet, he didn't do anything with that. We didn't. You know, Kyle just kind of is there and he feels bad, but he never really atones for Ike and Canada. I was hoping for a Blame Canada song, something.
Well, that was the interesting thing too, where they kept saying that you're turning into your mother because they took the plot from the movie and we're like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and squeeze that in here. So as much as I thought last week's episode was fun, I was like, it did feel a little lazy that they're just revisiting the people against Canada.
But I liked that because I was like, okay, so we're building up to something. But then they completely dropped it this episode. Like he felt bad about the nuke, but like, why didn't we have? Sorry, my mic just went weird. Why didn't we have him have a moment where he goes to the other spectrum? Like, okay, well, obviously people are still doing the messed up stuff after we've nuked Canada. That wasn't the answer. So is the answer the president? Why didn't Kyle go against Trump? Why didn't Kyle go against Garrison? Like, it didn't feel like it didn't feel like a rubber band snapping back. It just felt like, okay, now I'm sad now.
And Kyle was really the driving force last week, but you felt like he was barely in this. He's like, I feel really bad. It's almost like Ike had more screen time than he did. So, yeah, I definitely think that's why it was so disappointing, was because they built up to something, and then by the time it was all over, you're like, what the hell? It might as well have been an M. Night Shyamalan movie. You're just like, what the fuck was that?
They had so many things set up, and I really actually loved the way they were revisiting all the moments that have gotten us to here. The only thing we were missing was also member berries, because we were taking a trip down memory lane.
Remember.
But that was the problem. I really felt they could have done a complete reset button on everything.
What was the what was it parodying with her, like them just getting to these different places and her like being like, wait a second, and then seeing them in different lights?
I don't think it was parenting anything. I think it was just her coming to a realization of, wow, this is how I got here, and because we as an audience have been fed. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's parroting Game of Thrones because like Game of Thrones took so many years until like, wow, it's finally paying off.
Yeah, I don't know that it's a specific thing. It's definitely something you'll see in any show that's been on long enough, and they just sort of look back. I think it was just really Heidi realizing, look at all these places where these terrible things happened, and I need to break up with you. That's why it's so upsetting that Steph can't be here tonight, because I know how invested she was in Heidi, and I think that arc might have brought her back to Team Heidi. Unfortunately, I like that she was disillusioned with Heidi.
She was a big Heidman shipper.
I thought the solution would have been her going back to social media or something. Because that's what she's like, this is the place where it all started. I let go of my phone.
I'll tell you what I expected to happen when she had the gun. At first you think she's going to shoot Cartman. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to kill herself. I legitimately expected Heidi to blow her head off. And I was just like, wow, that's going to be so dark. And then they didn't do it. So I'm not saying I'm disappointed, but I really was convinced that that's where that was going.
That would have definitely had a reset button.
Yeah, it definitely would have.
Well, because we've seen it before of like, oh, geez, okay, well, let's clean this up.
Yeah.
And they would have just buried it.
Maybe Heidi was Saddam Hussein the whole time. And then we get the Blame Canada song, and then we're good.
Everybody would have
bring it all back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We could talk about the themes and whatnot, but that's fine. But as far as the hard-hittingness, the story, the impact, I get it, okay? We're three white people. We have nothing to complain about.
We're the whites.
By the way, one of the things I absolutely loved about the episode was the fact that we open up with the daughter, whose name is Crystal White.
Very nice, yeah.
Great name. Any significance in the name Bob, other than just that it is a common white name?
Bob is such a white name, and I don't think Bob White means anything, or even Robert White or whatever. But there were a couple things which I thought were funny, which was like it's kind of the press conference with the sheriff saying that you can't even do a coy satirical take on shooting the president, and the sort of the follow-up questions of like, well, what if we joke about our friend shooting the president? I don't know, I thought that was actually very funny. My favorite line came from that moment though, which was they'll do what they did to Kathy Griffin, make her unfunny for 30 years. And
I like that line.
Yeah.
But even you mentioning that makes me think that at the end they could have had Heidi be like, I'm going to end it all, point the gun at Garrison and say, I'm going to shoot the president. And then have the sheriff come out and shoot Heidi being like, you're not allowed to do that. Like,
wow. Yeah. No, I mean, story-wise, that would have made a lot more sense. That would have been a much clearer, more linear story than the one they told.
Absolutely. Yeah, this one's tough to break down. Just overall, it feels so raw at the moment. The term being disappointment, unfortunately.
yeah, I mean, obviously they're using Canada as a switch for North Korea. It's like, right? Like, that's kind of the thing is like, okay, you have the president who's, you know, antagonizing North Korea, and everyone thinks that North Korea is going to bomb us because of this. And I mean, I'm kind of drawing straws here because there's.
Well, that's the problem. Like, you know, the whole reason I got into it was he was basically galvanized. Yes, he wanted to do something, but the report, like, hey, as Canadians, we all have to band together, and we're going after Garrison. And the fact that he's still left loose, well, that is a loose end because Canada now looms over this. There's just too much, and I don't mind the open-ended ending in movies or TV shows, but this is just too loose.
Well, that, and it's just, some things just didn't make sense. Trump doesn't give a shit about his approval ratings. So why is he going around asking people about his approval ratings? Like, he literally doesn't care. Like, so, like, there's nothing in the news about Trump pandering to millennials for approval ratings or children for approval ratings. So that didn't make any sense at all.
Well, maybe that's the difference because it is Mr. Garrison, and one thing that's consistent with him over 20 years, I think, is that he definitely wants people to like him and, you know, think he's interesting at least, if not really cool, or a woman for a few seasons there.
It's just, I cared more about the Mr. Mackey and the, all right, like, I cared more about the school storyline than the whole other huge-ass storyline with the Canadians and Stranger Things.
I do think they did a good job of wrapping up the school storyline from last week. You know, I mean, they didn't spend that much time on it, but just sort of the idea that, you know, but they work together and everybody throwing up. I thought that was actually very funny. Not funny enough to make the episode, you know, a real passing grade for me, but I did think there were some laughs there.
If there's anything people need to know is that if somebody's in a position of power over somebody at a workplace, those, like, somebody else, they cannot get together, or that is just disgusting. Phil, that is just disgusting.
I do believe that.
I believe that too, even though my wife was an intern on a TV show that I worked on. But that's besides the point.
How dare you?
But we started dating after she went back to school. Yeah, it doesn't make it better.
That is absolutely disgusting.
It's very not PC. That's for sure.
Just had another baby.
But okay, so
she makes that noise a lot.
Is the sentiment that this is what we care more about that than who we have in office? Because people have kind of compared Hollywood in the sense that everything that's coming out, and yet the president has said heinous things and, like, acted in certain ways, and yet we don't impeach him whatsoever, but we care about Hollywood. I think it's more that there's things in this world that nobody's ever going to agree on, and then there's things that are just universally agreed upon. One of those things that's universally agreed upon is that you don't date your coworkers. Okay. But one of those things that's not agreed upon is if the president's crazy, you don't just all not support him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an interesting theory that we certainly appreciate.
The thing that's interesting with Trump is that it just seems like, and because of course Garrison and the whites are supposed to be the Trump supporters, like, yeah, and then it's also supposed to be just white people in general complaining about stuff. But, like, it's
about time that we heard from the whites. I thought it was good of Trey and Matt to take a stand.
They actually gave the whites a podium.
Nobody ever listens to the whites.
Nobody listens to the whites. The whites have no power in this country. But no, I just think it's interesting because, yeah, like, no matter what Trump does, there's still going to be people who support him and love him for it.
Yeah.
Like, even, like, there's, like, intelligent people that are still, like, super on board with everything he does. And I'm just like, okay, you don't have to, like, hate the guy, but you can also be understanding of the fact that not everything he does is amazing, for the love of God. Like, and I think that's what they were trying to get at, and that's what they were kind of showing through the whites and that like, but he's gonna do this, he's gonna do this.
But
Guys,
Hillary wouldn't have been any better. I thought.
Yeah,
that was funny that they kept saying that.
The arguments.
The
Well, it did die. We talked about doubling down, right? The name of that episode, and so and in a sense, it tried to take all the things that it laid out across the entire season. I mean, even down to the Cartman trying to kill himself. Of like, come on, everybody.
Yeah,
we don't want you to die, Eric.
Yeah,
Give life a try, Eric.
I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, straight, or gay. If you don't do something, I'm gonna kill myself.
I liked that Kyle was the set off for Heidi's crisis, where she's like, "You're just in love with me," and Kyle's like, "I could never love you who you are now."
Yeah,
that was like the moment.
That tells you a lot about Heidi. That's what made me say, "What do you mean? Like this guy that I don't like doesn't like me anymore? What happened?"
You tried to get me killed. Yeah, well, you made us late for the pumpkin patch. That was a very weak time for me.
Yeah, and then
I was upset.
As I said when that episode aired, you know, there's something to be said for Cartman's stance on that. You know, the pumpkin patch was very important to him.
So let's talk about that, because she makes a very astute point that if you put yourself as the victim, then you're capable of anything.
I mean, that was the most Kyle moment of the season, in terms of like, you know, oh no, Stan moment. You know, I've learned something today.
Yeah.
Like that was the, you know, I've learned something today of the season. It's very true, but they didn't play it in the way that kind of would have made more sense to play it. Because right now, because it doesn't seem like they're actually targeting people who are taking advantage of this the current climate to do that. It seems more like they're just saying it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
I guess, I mean, it makes sense. And to me, I was fine with it because how much more, I get it, maybe you want it a little bit more on the nose, but how much more on the nose can you be with Cartman and Heidi? Like, as far as the storyline that they've set up for themselves, you can interpret it and apply it to what you want, but Heidi and Cartman are your vehicle.
Yeah, and I think her realization that, you know, she never wanted to think of herself as a victim, and that's really all that Cartman has ever really done in his life. You know, whether it's a victim for, you know, his, you know, from the first episode, his mom not bringing him cheesy poofs. You know, ever since then, he's been a victim of some kind or another, and I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Although I also liked how much Heidi hated the ghost of her skinny self. And
shut up, bitch.
Skinny bitch. I don't know. I just feel like the victim card, the way they put it out there was a good message, but it was using a relationship as the example, as opposed to like the people like Antifa or like the people who are actually doing that to themselves. Like it wasn't as on the nose as you think to the people who actually need to hear that message. Well, I don't know.
I don't think those people here.
They wouldn't even watch the show anyway, so I guess that's true.
You know, I mean, hey, if there's who's that famous psychiatrist? He literally, after a whole slew of just being basically a shitbag for a number of years, he was finally like, okay, you know what? For the next year, I'm gonna just accept all blame, all responsibility in my life onto myself, and if things don't change, then I'll know it's bad luck. And all of a sudden, his life got tremendously better because he was like, you know what? Everything in my life, I'm just going to take the responsibility for it. And it worked.
I don't know. I just wasn't very impressed with this season. There was like 3 good episodes throughout 10 episodes.
But they had a chance to... Again, one of the things I appreciated was that we were tying in those elements, just we didn't tie it very well. And I do agree that we spent a little bit too much time in the Stranger Things world.
I mean, I love that Randy was on a bike.
Which he fell off of. I definitely, that was probably my first laugh of the episode. Yeah. I agree, though, that they, like Steven said, they just felt they had to strong arm that in there, even though it really didn't fit for the story that they were literally in the middle of. You know, but you got a couple of good jokes about it. So
I would have loved them to reset it with the Mandela effect as the cause. So, like, they nuke Canada, and then suddenly the next day, like this episode, Canada's fine. And everybody remembers them having nuked Canada. It's like, oh, no, that's the Mandela effect. You know, Canada's fine now. You know, they nuked Canada, but now it's fine. That's the Mandela effect. Like, I feel like they had a good opportunity to bring in Mandela Effect. They had a good opportunity to bring in Flat Earth Theory. Like, so much has been going on throughout this season that's just so laughable and make funnable that they just passed up because they wanted to focus on political bullshit.
I don't think they wanted to focus. I don't know. It's strange. We talked about at the first episode that they were going to do things a little bit differently this season. And
yeah, I mean, it was a while before they got political, you know, and we didn't see Trump Garrison for kind of a while this year. You know, the first few, they were just like, no, we're just going to steer away from all that. But I do agree with the idea, though, Stephen, that it definitely ramped up in the second half of the season, and which is, you know, it's only 5 episodes, but still, they clearly wanted to sort of make a very specific point, and whether or not that was helpful to the story they were trying to tell, they still made the point anyway.
So do you think that the show would be stronger if they did not do what they've been doing for 2 seasons now? 3 seasons
at this
now?
point, yeah, because it's just they're just a lot stronger at one-offs. And I've liked those moments when they've tried to. I think there's a lot of good ideas there, but
they're pigeonholing themselves.
Then I don't know. Maybe you just need a little bit longer time to do it. I don't think a week. If you're gonna do it in that sense, it really needs to be thought out. Otherwise, it just does feel like ideas thrown out and tried to be piecemeal together. Unfortunately.
But like I look at some of the best episodes of this series, and I'm like, okay, if you take any of those episodes and you take the best parts of them, there's no way you could fit them into any of these storylines. Take Jack Offisaurs. There's no way you can have Jack Offisaurs this season. Starvin' Marvin doesn't fit in this season. Like, Mr. Hat, you could have brought back. He could have fit in this season, but we didn't because he's gone. But, you know, like, think of your favorite episodes of this show and try to make any of those elements work in these continued storylines. And they just don't. Aside from, like, Randy being Lord, that's probably the best thing that came out of them serializing the series. But even then, like, it's just because Hillary lost, that, like, the seasons just went.
Yeah, I think that they haven't been able to recover from basically the election story that they wanted to tell, and just everything since then has been like, oh, I don't know. I mean, this isn't what we wanted. This isn't what we were excited about. But let's give it a try.
I think they're best when they can just say the weirdest. Like, when they can just take 48 hours and come up with the weirdest shit and not have to worry about continuity, I think that's where they shine the best.
Yeah, the best episodes this season were definitely a little bit more standalone. You know, there was the Halloween episode, which I thought was very good. There was, you know, an episode that featured heavily Coon and Friends, as I recall. So I don't know. I think that the non-serialization is definitely the way to go. And I don't know, at the end of last season, the impression was, I mean, the title for that last episode was The End of Serialization as We Know It. So it was like, great, we're not going to get it anymore. And I mean, you know, you didn't get it throughout the whole season, essentially, but you had a couple of 2-parters that related to each other. And when you only have 10 episodes, the fact that's 4 of them. So
I don't necessarily mind the smaller things. Like, if they continued with like
subtle things.
Yeah, the fact that Tweek and Craig are still dating.
Yeah,
no,
that's
no problem with
the
that.
holding
That's
hands
fine.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
But don't focus on that. Just let it be part of the
you
background.
can have stuff that runs through the season, but don't have your main story just be, you know,
I mean, they could have Garrison be the president and still do things. It just doesn't need to have every episode tie so heavily together.
Yeah, like one of my favorite episodes was, in fact, I forget the actual name of it, but when it's, you know, put it down.
Oh yeah,
that's what it's actually
That's
called.
great.
You know, overall a standalone episode, and yet it referenced, you know, that was the one that referenced Craig and Tweek actually being a gay couple. It had Heidi and, of course, Cartman, and it brought in Garrison. It brought, I don't know if it actually brought Member Berries. That might have been later, but.
Well, and the Member Berries it's just a throwaway.
That was complete. I really wanted more.
It was funny. I remember we were all very excited when we were watching it, but you're just like, oh, well, great. Now here the Member Berries are back, and we didn't get them again, which is definitely disappointing.
This episode was ripe for Member Berries, pun intended.
Well, because literally it was, I remember being here.
Yeah.
I remember being here, Cartman. There was like 3 of those, and any one of those would have been a good opportunity for the Member Berries, and there they are for those watching on YouTube.
We could have even brought the ghost of Michael Jackson back for a scene.
No, That's ignorant. That's ignorant.
Get out of here, you skinny bitch.
That's ignorant.
No, not you, skinny Heidi. I mean Michael Jackson.
That's ignorant.
That's ignorant.
No,
look in the mirror last episode.
No. That's stupid. No.
Oh, you didn't have any bonding with Kyle and his mom? Like if they that would have been better if they just teamed up.
Well, that's what we were predicting last time.
Yeah, okay.
And Kyle's mom is barely there at the end, and she has like one line. It's like, "Oh, Kyle, Ike, good to see you." I was like, "All right," but yeah, I mean,
Kyle, Ike.
The whole cause would have been right in her wheelhouse, and yeah, they definitely could have utilized her better. I mean, I don't know. She's a great character, and I feel like they don't use her enough. And whatever happened to Kenny? It's like so
What happened
rare.
to Officer Bar Brady?
Oh my god, I love Officer.
Where was Bar Brady on the search? Anyway, all right.
Where was Mimsy?
Shut up,
Yeah,
Mimsy!
Nah.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. I just want to go down memory lane.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna play a
Memory
cheap
lane.
'80s song.
We
Let's
remember.
find "Don't You Forget About Me."
from the Breakfast Club.
That's right. So let's find that
Simple
song,
Minds.
and we're gonna commentate as images flash. And if you're watching on video, great, you get to see the image. If you're listening on audio, use your imagination as we fill that visual void.
Imagination. Imagination.
As we paint the word picture. Somebody in the chat, I saw it for a second, said, "Bad season, where do we go from here?"
Only up.
Yeah.
How about away from serialization? Let's get some fucking James Cameron in here. Let's raise the bar.
Yeah, I don't know why. Why?
Okay, real quick. Season 1 to 10. What's your rating?
One being the lowest.
1 being the lowest. 10 being how funny Heidi is.
There were a few good episodes, so I don't know. I'll give it a 4.
That's pretty rough for saying there's been a few episodes,
But
but
there's 4
I
good
kind of
ones.
agree with you. Yeah.
There were 4 good ones. That's
Yeah,
why
you're
I gave
counting it
a 4.
off that number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking because there's 10. It's actually very easy on a scale of 1 to 10 because I'm like, I think there were 4 that I really liked.
What were you thinking the 4? Give Life a Try, Coon and Friends,
Put It
Water
Down.
Bears, and Put It Down.
Yeah.
And last episode.
Last episode.
Last
for me.
episode was good, but as excited as I was for Terrence and Phillip being in it, it's it's the 5th best, so it's like right in the middle.
Did you guys like the old folks one?
Oh, I did like the old folks with the Hummels. Yeah,
The Hummel.
See, that's true. And all of a sudden, the season sounds a little bit better because now we've already talked about more than half of it.
Yeah. So okay, let me just give a quick recap of.
I think it
all
wasn't
the episodes.
I think it wasn't that they weren't all like okay episodes. I think it's just all of the episodes did not live up to the potential that they could have.
Yeah, I think
They didn't tie in everything as well as they could have because Trey and Matt are so good at coming up with things nobody could ever think of. And when you can think of a way that would tie in better and you can think of a better way to do things, that's not a good sign. Because like you can look at a lot of the previous seasons and there's no way that anyone could think of something better to tie everything together in. And it seems like this season we were consistently thinking of better ways to do these episodes.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So we had white people renovating houses. Overall,
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna give these a pass or fail, I thought that was a pass.
That's a pass. Yeah.
It wasn't the best, but it was okay.
But was the episode a pass or was it just the whole part about Randy and the houses?
Randy in the houses.
See, like, so it's not even the whole episode. It's just that one part that's like memorable.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm gonna change history and perception.
Excuse me, I'm naysayer. I'm gonna naysay.
Well, Put It Down, by far my
that was
favorite
good.
episode.
Reminded me a
probably-
lot of what was the dude's name with the hat? Oh my
There's
god.
a lot of dudes with hats.
Jamiroquai?
Oh god.
I don't know. You think about that one
God
for a
damn it.
minute. Holiday special. I didn't love it. This was the Columbus Indigenous people.
I
episode.
didn't love that
It was
one.
all right.
No.
Making out with the Indian was shock factor, but
Yeah. I just liked it because of Randy, but apart from that,
Yeah, it was. It was a great Randy episode, but the episode on a whole, I would not give a passing grade to.
franchise prequel. For me, it wasn't the greatest, only because it didn't tie as much to the game as I had hoped
it was
for.
all right. I just remembered it's Reality who I was talking about with the hat.
Got it. Hummels and Heroin.
I like that one. I mean, like Steven said, it could have certainly been better, but I think, top to bottom, it was pretty well crafted.
She's got old lady farts.
They did bring that in with last week's episode.
Yeah.
Sons of Witches. I don't know why people didn't love this episode as much. I really enjoyed it.
I thought we all liked it. I remember watching that.
Top 3 of the season.
Yeah.
Doubling Down. I was okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to some of these other ones you mentioned, it wasn't one of my favorites this year, but it was good. I did like it, but
Moss Piglets.
It was pretty good.
It could have been, the ending could have been a little bit stronger, but because it's a Nimsy and Nathan episode.
Yeah, I mean, there was some great Nathan and Mimsy stuff, but the episode on the whole was just okay. It
was a good swerve though, with the NFL being the people who were trying to get the water
bears. I did think
bears.
that was funny, yeah.
Indeed. And then super hard PC-ness. I thought one of my favorite episodes. I thought we were gonna get to a better ending. Unfortunately, we didn't. And then tonight's episode just unfortunately complete letdown.
Yeah.
So, we're on the bridge where it all began with Heidi ready to throw off her cell phone. So I'm just gonna narrate a couple of these images as they filter through your glorious mind. Next picture. Look at this. The Beauty and the Beast. It's. Remember we were going to the moon, and
we're gonna go live on Mars. Elon Musk was humanity's salvation.
Remember
right.
The song?
I remember. Next one.
Hey!
Member berries.
I remember the member berries.
I remember.
The only thing I can't remember is the song that they had. I was trying to find
the member berries song.
Yeah, remember they were all dancing at the club.
Hey, shut up! We're about to kill you. I remember.
Next one. This is when Garrison. Okay, so this is when Garrison thought he was gonna lose.
Aw, jeez.
Back in the day, and
I think this episode was actually called "Aw, jeez."
I think it was, yeah.
So look at him, so different. This is when Heidi was still nice, thin, and they were still very loving.
This is when Cartman was about to go into the mountains to find the cabin, and that's when they all broke all his stuff.
Yes, indeed. Quite a sad moment. So this is Garrison at work, finally as president.
Aw, jeez.
Next one, and then this is
this was pretty good.
That was a fun episode. It's when they finally started to rehash their love.
When Craig realizes that he just has to listen and not try to give solutions to tweak.
That's right. And
Yelp critic. What's this? This was a long time ago.
This season. Was it?
No.
Oh,
I'm not saying these are this season.
No,
I'm saying
that all of them were last season. That's why. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, but sure, Yelp critic.
That's
Boogers
kind
and
of the
cum.
start of this.
Boogers and cum.
That's what started this all. He was the Yelp critic along with Kyle's dad. And this is, of course, when he was being made fun of. Cartman was for wanting to
kill himself.
Yeah, that episode. And then, of course, where he's singing.
Oh yeah, Give Life a Try.
Give life a try. So many good songs.
And then was there one last one? And this is aww.
Token Lives Matter.
Yes, Token Lives Matter.
While, of course, you have Butters in the background standing up.
Wieners out. Wieners out.
Wieners out. You know what? That's how I'm going to end the episode. We don't have Steph Sabra. So it's 3 dudes, 3 white liberals.
All right.
Wieners out.
Wieners out, gentlemen.
All right. All right, Anthony, you ready? Just all right, you make sure the camera's good. I definitely don't put it on like a TV slate or anything like that, because we're going to put our wieners out. So don't put it on a TV slate whatsoever. Right, Anthony?
Right, Anthony?
You're not going to put up a TV slate, are you?
Yeah, Anthony. You're not going to cut away to another image when we bring our wieners out. You could never do that.
Because then you wouldn't see our wieners, would you?
What about our friends joking about us taking our wieners out or putting a TV slate over our wieners?
No, that's not cool.
That's not allowed, so don't do it.
Don't do it.
All right. So, in 199, just kidding. All right. Christian's got his wiener out.
Oh my
Right.
God,
This
Christian,
this
what
wasn't
the
a joke,
fuck?
right? No, come on.
Oh my God.
It's the only way I'm ever gonna see it. Is
You're
if
a
I take it
grower,
out
not a
in here.
shower, huh?
Anthony, adequate engineered cutaway.
Is it cold in there, guys?
Oh my
Well,
God.
it is now. Now that
Oh
I have my
man,
pants off.
you're at full mast, aren't you? I'm sorry.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for putting up with us. We're going to do a final episode next week of this year, and then we'll continue on with fun episodes, hopefully down memory lane of other stuff, just like we did with our Randy Marsh episode.
I just want to know who Cartman's father is. Like, I'm still curious.
I think it's Terrence.
Is it Terrence?
I just had to.
Satan himself.
Or Philip.
Or
No,
Philip?
definitely not Philip. I think he doesn't go that way. If I had to guess about Philip, but
Uh-oh. You don't like Philip very much.
no, I'm a big Terrence guy.
What did the Muslim say to the black?
Oh man,
And,
this is even crazier than the time Muhammad came and dropped off his salmon helmet.
All right, we've completely devolved. In the meantime, where can people follow you, Steven?
At Naysayer on Twitter, Naysayer.
I'm sure that's a real Twitter.
Follow him.
But you can follow me at Christian DMZ, and I do a bunch of shows here throughout the week. You can find me there too.
Like the Trump Report, a real-life version of
The
this.
Garrison Report, yes.
And you can follow me at Bill Svitek, and please follow at Steph Sabra.
Yeah, we wish you could have been here to talk about Heidi.
Unfortunately, the reason why she's not here, in all seriousness, there's like 8,000 fires here in LA. We did not start the fire. It was always burning
Since the world was turning.
Steph did have to be evacuated. That is the serious part, and luckily she's safe. Don't worry, but unfortunately she couldn't make it here tonight.
Hey Terrence, have you heard about the evacuation?
Fuck!
You can't add gas to that fire. What's wrong with you people? All right, bye guys.
No, Terrence.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.